Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the importance of having information available that's not solely on the internet or on your phone. I think nowadays we really rely on our phones and the internet 100% just to Google stuff and look things up to get an answer. And living off grid, I think it really puts in the perspective of sometimes I don't have my internet turned on. A lot of times I'm in a place where my phone doesn't work. So I like to have books or guides that help me learn skills and would help me complete things that I need to do if I didn't have internet or power or my phone. So I'm going to show you some of the books that I have that I do like to look through. I do like to try things out of them. I find them very interesting and very useful. The first one that I have is Foraging Mushrooms in Maine. Of course, I live here in Maine, so I have one for Maine. And this allows me to look up. It has colorful pictures of what the mushrooms actually look like. I haven't tried a whole lot of foraging yet. It makes me a little bit nervous just because some of the mushrooms do look the same that you can eat and that you shouldn't eat. But I'm going to continue to research it. And I'm also going to try to find a foraging class. But in a worst case scenario, if I really needed to go find something in the woods to eat, this would at least give me a guide and something to follow so I could try to do my best. And it's just interesting reading. So I have a book about this, and I also have a fold out, which is laminated, that has all the different types of mushrooms. It says if they're edible, if they're poisonous. The most common ones, and this one is actually for New England. It's not only for Maine. So I'm sure whatever part of the country that you live in, you could find something like this for your area. So I have mushrooms, and then I also have one that's called Wild Plants of Maine, and it's a useful guide. This just helps you find, what plants are, what you could use them for, what plants you should avoid. It's just always a good idea. I'm out in the woods a lot. I'm walking around a lot. I want to make sure my dog's not eating things he shouldn't eat. And also, if I ever needed to forage, I want to make sure I know what is edible. And the fourth one I have is similar. It's just another harvesting in the wild. But I think the more information you have, the better. I tried different books to see which ones I like better than others. So far, all of these four are my favorite out of the foraging and plant books that I have found. So you kind of just have to try the book, see if you like it. If it's not something that you really like, then I usually give it away and try a new one. But the bad part about this one is it's not only for New England, it is for the whole United States. So some things in here I would never see, like a cactus, but it's still not a bad thing to have. What if I ever go take a trip, out into the Midwest or the West, and I do need this. So, and it's interesting. So another thing that I find that's very important to have books about living off grid, and just in case there's an emergency or we never know what's going to happen in the world today, is books about canning and how to have a self-reliant pantry. I take both of these very serious. I don't call myself a prepper necessarily, but I do make sure that I have things that I could survive for quite a while by myself without having to go somewhere. So these are very interesting. This one is actually a question and answer book, which I really enjoy. It's questions that you may have asked or you wouldn't think to ask about canning, and the author actually answers them in this book. And this one is the self-reliance recession-proof your pantry. So this is just some really good ideas on how to store food. Make sure you store it properly. It has some recipes that have only some very simple ingredients, kind of like almost like a Depression era cookbook or something like that. So I use this. I also have a ball canning book. I couldn't put my hands on it right this moment. It's probably in my pantry. And that way, living off grid, if for some reason all of my power and backup power fails, I need to know how to preserve my food so I don't lose it. And if I ended up, say I go hunting and get a deer, I do not have a refrigerator or a freezer that's large enough to hold that much food. So I need this canning information, and I also have the canning tools. You know, I have a pressure canner. I also have a hot water bath canner, and that way I would be able to preserve the food that I get to take care of me and Tank and my dad, of course. So the last 3 books that I'm going to show you today are different. They're more like survival skills. One's called Country Wisdom, and these 3 you can get right off Amazon, and I find them, they have a lot of things in it. This one is called 365 Survival Skills. I will have to say probably about half of the stuff in here I would never probably use, but it doesn't mean that it's interesting, and I do learn skills from this and learn new things from this book. Some of the things that I would point out in this book that I find fairly interesting are, let's see, I wrote down the page number so I wouldn't forget here. This is just, I don't know if you could see it. This is about a crayon as a candle. It actually says, and I would never think about this, most of us have crayons in our house, especially if we've ever had kids, but you can use one crayon as a candle and it will burn approximately 30 minutes. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. If you're in the dark and you don't have any candles, or you don't have a lantern or a lamp, but you can find some crayons, you can have light for 30 minutes from one crayon. So it's just things that you might not ever think about, that you probably you don't think you'll ever need, but one day, what if there's a huge storm, you have no power, you have no lights, and you're out of candles, or you're out of lamp oil, or anything like that. Another thing in here is how to process and eat acorns. If you're really hungry, you might need an acorn one day. But it's just skills that you can learn and know about, and it would help you, you know, if you're ever in a situation that you need it. This page, oh, this one I find really interesting. This is 3 nutritious teas that you can make. The one in here that I would probably use the most is pine needle tea. All you have to do is take pine needles. You take a handful of them, you crush them up, you steep them in hot water, or, you know, hot water or boiling water for 10 minutes, and you strain it. And that makes pine needle tea, which is really rich in vitamin C. So that could be really helpful if you are not feeling well, you don't want to, you know, take something that's not natural. You can just drink some pine needle tea, and I don't think it doesn't really taste bad to me. It actually tastes good. There's also a way to make, where I live in Maine, so there's lots of birch trees. You can take twigs from a birch tree, and, you know, about 2 or 3 inches long, and you put them in the water for about 5 minutes, and it brews a tea that actually is a little bit sweet. So things like this is just really, I like to live off the land around me and use as much of nature as I can and be as natural as I can. So a lot of these things that you can learn from these books just allow you to do that. And it would always be great in an emergency. Let's see. The next one I was going to show you in here is, oh, this is charcoal slurry for an upset stomach. So this is a natural way to take care of an upset stomach, just using charcoal out of a fire. It does have to be hardwood, and you only want the black part of the charcoal. But if you crush up about 2 teaspoons of that charcoal and you put it in a cup of water, it's a natural stomach pain reliever and a natural, like, nausea. If you have nausea, it's a natural thing to help with that. And that's something as simple as taking some charcoal out of your fire. And the last thing in this one I was going to tell you about is, oh, this is neat to me. If you're ever in the woods or lost or just need to know where you're at, this tells you how to find the North Star, the easiest way to find it. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So it tells you that you have to look for the Big Dipper. Most people know what the Big Dipper is. And if you follow that up, it's the very first star in this Little Dipper. but that's something that a lot of people don't know, and they would have to look up to find out. So that's what's in that book that I found interesting. There's lots of other things as well. I was just trying to give you some, you know, of the best ones out of here. So the next book, these ones are really big, but they have a lot of information. This first one is Survival Wisdom and Know-How. It's really thick, as you can tell. I think this was only like $11 on Amazon. It wasn't a lot. And some of the items in here, I mean, there's tons of stuff. It would take you a long time to go through everything that's in this book. But some of the things that I've used and that I've enjoyed looking at in here is, this has a lot of things about animals and livestock. It has about, you probably can't see it, but it has tracking animals, knowing their footprints, know how to tell if they're walking or running. This is really helpful if you're hunting. It's a really good skill to learn if you're into this type of lifestyle. The other thing in here, you find it. Oh, this is basic. This is under the food packing, cooking, and fishing. It tells you how to preserve meat. Like if you don't have a way to cook it, you can smoke it, you can sun dry it. It explains how to do those things. It tells you a lot about fishing, a lot about things like that. It's just really good information to have. And I enjoy doing it. Let's see, $6.61. This was, oops, let me find it. Oh, this is a whole section. I know I talked about in the other book how to find the North Star, but in this section of the book, it's all about navigation. It tells you what you should think about before you go in the woods, what you should try to know before you try and navigate yourself through the woods, or just navigate in general. I think knowing this and reading it and having this is super important, because there's nothing worse than the thought of getting lost in the woods and then someone trying to have to find you. So if you ever do want to explore the woods or live in the middle of nowhere like me, it's always good to have these skills and to have it right here and ready to go. Let's see the next thing. Oh, this is all about water purification. What happens if you're in an emergency and you don't have any drinking water? It tells you how long you have to boil it. You only have to boil it for 1 to 2 minutes. A lot of people don't know that. That's all you have to boil it for. And it is a lot of work to boil your water, but it would give you drinking water that was safe. And you can just use a bandana over your container to make sure you get out all the, if you're getting it out of a stream, like the stream that's right here by my house, I'd want to filter it through like a bandana or a piece of cloth first, because there are things in the water that are big and chunky, and then you could just boil it. And it has other ways of how to purify your water and make water filters. And the last thing in this book I was going to mention is, let me get to the right page. Oh, it has a whole section of first aid. A whole huge section of first aid. I mean, these are skills that anyone would want to know and need to know, most likely. Especially where I live out here. I'm probably close to an hour from any, well, maybe 45 minutes from any hospital, and that's after I get out on the main road. I still have to get all the way out of the woods. So if I know some basic first aid that could really save us. There was a gentleman that had a fire not too far from here that lived in the woods, and the ambulance and the fire people couldn't find us because we live in the middle of nowhere. He no longer lives out here. So anything that you can learn on your own to try to stabilize yourself, especially when you're waiting for help. Or if you just have simple, small things, you want to make sure they don't get infected. You want to make sure that you can take care of them. Learning about, first aid and the basics of it is super helpful. So that one, like I said, this book was a Survival Wisdom and Know-How. So let me put this one away, and I'll grab the last one I was going to show you guys. And this one is Country Wisdom and Know-How. So it's like the Bates. I think this series has even more than these two books, and I might pick up some more of them. These are just the first two that I started with. And the biggest section in this book that I really enjoy and I have used is they have a whole section on gardening, how to, test your soil, how to, just tips and tricks on how to garden. Gardening sounds easy, but it's not always easy. Some things don't like to grow. Or if you have certain bugs, how can you get rid of them without having to put chemicals on your food? Because I don't want to spray my food with chemicals. And it has how to preserve, like if you grow squash or other like fall type garden vegetables. It gives you ways on how to preserve them without having to process them all the way. There's a big section on teas in here, which I really like. I know I touched on the tea in the other book, but in this it has just all kinds of herbal teas you can make, and it has like all the herbs that you can grow, and it has it has teas for stress relief, for helping you sleep, which are all natural, and you can grow these herbs in your garden and make your own tea. So that is really interesting to me. And the last section I was going to show you in this book is about repairs. It shows you how to do basic repairs. Here we go. It's called Home and Inside the House. And it goes through like, just how to fix an electrical plug, or just all kinds of small things how to patch a hole in the wall. Just simple little things that you might not have never had to do before, but now you have step-by-step instructions on how to try to fix them if you can. So I really just wanted to go over some of the books that I use and that I like to keep in my house in case I don't have internet or phone available. And sometimes just reading an old-fashioned book and having it right there in front of you, you know where it is. You can mark the pages. You don't have to search for a PDF file that you saved. And I can take these with me wherever I go if I wanted to. So I would love to hear if anyone has any books or other, even pamphlets or like these little fold-out guides. I'd love to hear of any that you guys like to use that you find useful and informative. I'm always looking for something new to look at and to read and learn from. So, yes. So thank you very much for watching the video today. If you have any questions about anything or any of these books, if you want, I can list the whole titles in the description of this video so you guys can, and if I can find the links, I'll put the links in there as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are about having books instead of always relying on our phones, especially living off grid or just trying to be prepared in case of an emergency or whatever else might happen in the world. So if you like this type of video, if you enjoyed the content, please like and share and subscribe. And I will go find Tank so he can say hi and bye. It's a little cold out there today. That's why I came inside. I think it was only like 40 degrees today. And as always, hope you have a great day. Live every day to the fullest and respect nature. And here is Mr. Tank. He was sitting here in the greenhouse on his couch. He didn't want to go inside with me for a little bit while I made the video. So he sat here with me. But as always, Tank says hello, and thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day.